So that's Duke. We kind of have a good idea of what we're looking at there. Let's go and move on to NC State, a team that I think NC State fans were starting to get a little nervous going into that 6 p.m. selection show, worried that, hey, we're on the bubble. What side of the bubble are we going to fall on? A lot of the bracketologists had NC State landing in Dayton, playing in the first four. And instead, they land squarely on the right side of the bubble. They are the number 11 seed in the South region. They are playing number 6 seed Creighton. What are your first thoughts on that matchup, Mark?
It's going to be tough. And so NC State opens as a 5-point underdog. I love the guard play, but NC State's just been shaky in this last month of the tournament. But hey, you got to get in the dance to be able to compete. And welcome back, Kevin Keatts. First time the Wolfpack have gotten in since 2018. It's been too many moons, Lewis. I will say this. I'm sorry?
Quite a lot of moons. Quite a lot.
Yes, too many moons. Too many moons. I will say this. With the guard play of NC State, if they can get hot, that can carry a team in March. So we all know Jarkel Joyner, Terquavion Smith. Don't forget as well about guard Casey Morsel and then the big fella. I absolutely love him. DJ Burns. He can score in one-on-one matchups if you don't double team him. So if they can be hot shooting, it's just like what Wolfpack team are you going to get? Are you going to get the team that's white hot and can knock out Virginia Tech, the reigning ACC champions in the tournament? Or are you going to have matchup problems? What we saw with Miami, they put Burns in the screen role, put him out in space, and forced him to defend players out on the perimeter, which is something he's not as adept at doing. It's going to be tough for the Wolfpack. I won't lie to you as an 11 seed, but they have the guards to do it. It's just a matter of like which team's going to show up, Lewis, and that's the big question mark between now and later this week.
Yeah, I love you bringing up Casey Morsel and his three-point shooting ability because he has been one of the best stories for NC State this season. But we talk about the guards, and yes, if Jarkel Joyner and if Terquavion Smith just go Super Saiyan and just go off and they both are scoring 20 plus, that would go very far. Guard play carries in the NCAA tournament, but I am super intrigued by the matchup down low between DJ Burns and Creighton center Ryan Kalkbrenner. I looked up how to pronounce his name in the WRL Sports Plus bracket breakdown. I had no idea how to say his name. I was like, I think it's something like this. Ryan Kalkbrenner. He was the Big East Defensive Player of the Year. He was first team All Big East. He's averaging 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks. That to me is going to be the difference because if DJ Burns can stay out of foul trouble, if he can do what he wants to do against Kalkbrenner, and that requires them to bring over someone to help double team, that will be so big for NC State. But if you can put Kalkbrenner on an island against DJ Burns, that is going to be some trouble. So how that matchup plays out, I think will be a big part of what happens with this game. Also, just when, I'm bringing up the stats again, but when you look at KenPom and when you look at what Creighton does, KenPom has Creighton as the 13th team in the country. As a 6 seed, that is disrespectful for Creighton. And if there's one thing you don't want in these first round matchups, it's to be matched against those teams that are very poorly placed. I look at Texas A&M as another example. They're a 7 seed. Are you kidding me? They're so much better than a 7 seed. So that is an unfortunate luck of the draw for State. I do think it's going to be difficult. I think what State is going to have to rely on is shooting well from outside. I look at Creighton's just their defensive effective field goal percentage. Their 47.3 is what they're allowing opponents, which is 41st in the country. So they're a good defense. I think a lot of that has to do with Kalkbrenner and what he brings on the interior. So you're going to have to try and get hot from outside. When I look at what State brings to the table from an offensive perspective, and excuse me as I shuffle my giant notepad, if you hear that in the background, they're going to have to get hot from outside. State's one of the best teams in terms of not turning the ball over. They're at 13.2 turnover per possession percentage, which is top 5 in the country. And Creighton doesn't force a lot of turnovers either. So, keep the possessions the way you want. State does well offensive rebounding. They're top 100, rebounding about 30% of their opportunities for offensive rebounds. So if you can get those second chance points, I think that goes a long way for the Wolfpack. It's going to be really interesting just to see. I think they're going to have to dominate the boards and do their best They're going to have to win those one-on-one matchups with DJ Burns and Kalkbrenner and just, make sure that Kalkbrenner does not become a problem, as I'm sure Creighton is going to make sure that DJ Burns does not become a problem for them. But I look at that matchup, and then I look at Travion Smith and Jarkel Joyner, just like you were saying.
Totally with you there, Lewis. And let me flip that on you, too. You mentioned DJ Burns staying out of foul trouble. Let's get Kalkbrenner in foul trouble.
Sure, yeah.
Get him off the floor. So I think that would be key to where make him beat you. And I know that you see the 2.2 blocks per game, but if you can consistently attack him, get him off the floor early, I think that would be the key for me is, hey, let's be aggressive and force him to make plays at the rim. Let's go right at him, Lewis, because, 5 fouls, it's especially in the tournament. If depending on how the referees are calling the game early on to it, might be tight early.
Yeah, and that's going to be key. Creighton is very good at playing defense without fouling. So that's going to be key is what do the refs do in that situation? I mean, because, it's one game at a time, right? It's one matchup at a time. So if you get some officials who are going to be, calling ticky-tacky stuff, that's going to adjust everything. So it's going to be tough for NC State.
Let me bring up 2 other points, Lewis, here. Number one, Creighton coach Greg McDermott, no stranger to the NCAA tournament. It's his 13th year with the Blue Jays. Last year's team made the Sweet 16. You're saying Greg McDermott, he's the father of Doug McDermott, former Creighton star NBA player. And then Lewis, how about the last 2 times that these 2 teams have played in Paradise? Back in 2016, we're in the Virgin Islands, and then all the way back in 1987 in Honolulu, Hawaii. That's like the dream assignment. The 2 teams have split the series in the 2 previous matchups.
Virgin Islands, Honolulu, Denver, Colorado. I don't see the difference. I don't see the difference. What's maybe a little bit colder.
3 slices of paradise. Lewis.
Yeah, something like that. But I think so now if we look, that's the first round. If State were to advance to the second round this weekend, they would be playing the winner of Baylor and UC Santa Barbara. And I know talking a little bit before about Baylor having the potential to go very far in this tournament. Let me be a little bit. I'll kind of counter that for you really quick, right? So if I look up Baylor on KenPom really quick, what you see is they're rated as the number 2 adjusted offense, which is points scored per 100 possessions, right? So they score 121 points per 100 possessions, which anything over 1 point per possession is pretty good. Defensively, they give up 101 points per 100 possessions, the 104th adjusted defense according to KenPom. So that's 2 versus 104. And when you look at what causes upsets and what causes runs, it's teams just like that. If Baylor goes cold shooting, they could be in trouble. You saw that happen over the past couple of weeks when they played Iowa State. If Baylor struggles in terms of shooting, and they're very good, obviously, but if they do have one of those nights where things get a little bit cold, it is college basketball after all. It's not the most beautiful basketball most of the time. Then what you end up seeing is those teams getting upset. But the flip side of that is a team like that, if they get really hot and if they lean into that strength, they could go on a long run. So when I look at Baylor, I see a team that is going to be kind of either feast or famine. That's kind of what I see with Baylor in this NCAA tournament. So if State were to pull this upset, then it's going to be which Baylor team do they get? Assuming Baylor wins. No disrespect to UC Santa Barbara. That's one of the things to watch as this part of the South region unfolds.
Lewis, any other thoughts about NC State? And then we get to discuss my favorite topic of what's next for North Carolina.
Only thing I'll say is I'm still really upset that they didn't end up being the 8 or 9 seed in Houston's region. I think that would have been really fun seeing like a second game matchup. Houston, NC State, 40 years after the Cardiac Pack 1983 run. That would have felt very poetic to me, but sometimes life does not imitate art, apparently.
I'm going to have to pop on the 30 for 30 survive in advance as soon as we're done recording, Lewis, because I'm right there with you 40 years later.